Hello, everyone, and welcome to Weeks of Welcome, our Scholar Success and Scholar Support Department open houses. My name is Becca McAlpine, your MC for all things Weeks of Welcome. We are so thrilled that today we have both Melissa Mayer and Dawn Reinders. Sorry, Dawn. Uh, we have both of you here present with us to share about all things, both of their departments, and they're super excited to take you on this journey throughout today's Weeks of Welcome session. So with that being said, I'm going to hand off the microphone to Melissa, who's going to take it away first. Thanks so much.
All right. Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Becca. First, we'll go over our agenda for today. There we go. Yes. So as always, we will start with our mission and vision, and then we will go over our Compass values, and then you will meet our team. I will do a brief MTSS overview and what those supports look like here at Compass, and I will share some successes from our team and highlights, and then I'll turn it over to my wonderful colleague, Dawn, who will go over SSTs and Section 504 plans here at Compass, and at the end, we will have time for Q&A. So as always, we start with our mission and vision. They're very important to us here at Compass. And all this information presented today is geared toward our scholar success and sticking with our Compass mission and vision. So I think it's really important that we highlight these every single presentation. And I really love to focus on that love of learning, because that is my goal here, is to develop a sense of the love of learning in all scholars. So our Arctic values are achievement, respect, teamwork, integrity, and communication, and they are central to all that we think, say, and do here at Compass. Okay, so a bit about me. My name is Melissa Mayer, and I'm the Scholar Success Manager here at CCS. It's my 6th year here in this role, and prior to that, I was a member of the Scholar Success team as a reading intervention tutor for middle and high school scholars. I've been in education for almost 20 years, and education has always been my passion, especially working with scholars who needed additional support. I was a fine student, but I found out that I really had to work harder to comprehend some of the content. I actually realized later on when I was in grad school that I missed a lot while I was reading. So it's been my goal to give scholars the support that they want and need, the supports I really wanted and needed to fully access their curriculum. Success for each scholar is the goal of the team. We work under the MTSS framework, which I'll dive into later, and it operates under the belief that all means all. All scholars receive equitable access to the curriculum. Meet our team. Every one of these educators loves her job, and it's evident in her teaching. We have Mrs. Fletcher as our elementary math intervention tutor and Miss Loera for middle school and high school math intervention. Then there's Miss Sylvia for elementary reading intervention tutoring and Miss Drew for middle school and high school. Our intervention specialists are Mrs. Solons for middle school and high school math, Mrs. Darley, who works with middle school and high school scholars to develop reading comprehension skills, and Mrs. Hillhouse Campisi, who works with our lower elementary scholars on foundational literacy skills. So MTSS, and I know you've all gotten a lot of acronyms this week, so I have a few more for you. MTSS is a multi-tiered system of support. It's a systemic, multi-tiered model which targets behavioral, social emotional, and academic support for scholars prior to a problem. This tiered instruction is differentiated to meet the needs of individual scholars, both academically and behaviorally. MTSS will make all scholars more successful in all areas and on track for graduation while preparing them to be college and career ready. In each of the areas, behavioral, social, emotional, and academic, scholars receive support at various levels based on their needs. These levels are fluid. Some scholars may always only need Tier 1 support. Some may need Tier 2 for a bit just to get through a rough patch, and a few may need intensive support at the Tier 3 level to help them get back on track. What's beautiful about MTSS is that your scholar has an entire team working to determine the best supports that are best suited for him or her. So while MTSS encompasses these three domains, today I'm going to focus on how the tiered academic support is provided here by my team here at Compass. This graphic represents the different tiers within MTSS. We have Tier 1, which is universal. It's for all scholars. Then we have Tier 2, which are supplemental supports for some, and Tier 3, which is intensive support for few. In MTSS, when we're talking about academic supports, we are often talking about RTI, another acronym. It's Response to Instruction and Intervention. It's an approach that focuses on individual scholars who are struggling academically, and all the stakeholders pull together resources to promote scholar success before they fall farther behind. It's a systemic and data-driven with tiered levels of intervention to benefit every scholar. This is what's so beautiful about MTSS in all the domains. It involves all stakeholders, teachers, counselors, coordinators, tutors, and so on, collaborating to best support each scholar. The conversation is always happening. Last year, we held 40 collaborative meetings to discuss how to best support a scholar in need of something beyond Tier 1. And the beauty is, this conversation is not a one and done. It's ongoing throughout the year. We are invested in your scholar. I'm going to go through each academic tier individually so you can get an idea of what's happening at each level. So here we have Tier 1 core universal instruction. These Tier 1 supports are what's happening in all of the classes. Approximately 80% of scholars qualify as needing only Tier 1 support. This looks like rigorous grade level instruction, and sometimes there's differentiation when needed. And Tier 1 is always, always happening. So Tier 2 is going to serve those scholars needing a little bit more help. This is about 15% of the school population. It's extra instruction and support provided to scholars often in smaller groups. Tier 2 support is needed when there are small skill gaps that are identified, either by a diagnostic assessment or teacher's progress monitoring. Sometimes this support happens with the content or supervising teacher, extra instruction, and evidence-based supports. If identified by the initial STAR diagnostic, scholars who need Tier 2 supports will be invited to small group math or reading intervention tutoring. In these sessions, they'll receive targeted instruction and work independently in IXL. Okay, Tier 3. It's for scholars who need intensive support in order to succeed. This is about 5% of the scholar population. It's extra instruction and support that are provided often in even smaller groups or sometimes one-on-one, so scholars receive that individualized attention that they need to get back on track. Similar to scholars in need of Tier 2 support, scholars who need Tier 3 will be invited to resource groups with our credentialed resource specialists. So as mentioned, we have a universal screening to initially identify scholars in need of Tier 2 or Tier 3 supports. This will be done during the first 2 weeks of school using the STAR Renaissance diagnostic. Scholars will take the STAR test 2 more times, mid-year and end of year, to monitor their progress and growth. The main data point we use to invite scholars to intervention is this STAR test. So any scholar identified as intervention, which is yellow, or urgent intervention, red, will receive an invitation from my team. This is why it's hugely important that scholars take this test with fidelity. We use this data as our starting point when it comes to providing academic support. If a test score is not accurate, I recommend testing again. If a scholar does not qualify for tutoring, but a teacher or learning coach is noticing significant skill gaps, implement an evidence-based strategy with progress monitoring. If that doesn't work, if the scholar is not responding, we can look to place him or her in our intervention sessions according to the scholar's needs, based on that data. So now let's look a little bit closer at what these supports look like from our team. Let's talk tutoring. As I mentioned, this was my role for 2 years at Compass, and it was the best job. We host weekly small group sessions, they're grouped by grade level, for math and reading. These groups are based on the STAR diagnostic as well as teacher identification. It's really a fun learning opportunity for scholars to get support in areas in need of strengthening. It really is an absolutely joyful learning community in these sessions. This year, we are all using IXL as our curriculum for all of the math and reading scholars. Kinder to second grade scholars in need of foundational literacy support, they'll be working in a program called LaLilo, which is more targeted toward those early literacy skills. Look at last year's data. There's one point worth mentioning. Showing up to and participating in tutoring sessions is very important, but the work does not stop there. The scholars who went in and practiced independently in IXL or LaLilo, in addition to showing up to the sessions, overall showed more significant growth. That independent practice is key for exercising and growing their reading and math muscles. All groups focus on strengthening skills necessary for accessing grade level curriculum. They are not homework help. So I really like to use the analogy of a road that's just riddled with potholes. And many of the scholars have strategies that they use for navigating around those potholes, but it often takes them longer to reach the end. Our supports are going to help fill in those potholes for a smoother, easier, and more enjoyable ride. So once the testing window closes, we gather all the data and see who's identified as needing targeted support in math and/or reading. I send the initial email to let learning coaches, scholars, and supervising teachers know that their scholar will be invited to intervention in math or reading. Shortly after that, the tutor or resource intervention specialist will send her invitation email. This email will have all the details about session times and days. It'll also include an RSVP link. This helps us manage our calendar invitation and session rosters. Please RSVP. Our team sends out weekly communication to scholars and learning coaches. It includes reminders about session details, links to slides and Nearpod lessons, recordings, and any documents that can be used as lesson aids. The recordings and Nearpod scholar-paced lessons can be used for asynchronous participation. So some of our scholars have scheduling conflicts or they miss a week. We use this option so that they are not missing out on the reading or math support. Also worth noting, our team uses focus mode during instructional time. So not only is this a great way to reduce distraction, it allows scholars who are more timid to turn on their camera without being seen by others. So the teacher can see everybody, but scholars only see the teacher. Now, that said, we know that scholars like to be social with each other, so we do give them time before and after instruction to see one another and interact. And in fact, so many of our scholars responded to our end of year survey saying that they love being able to come back each week and connect with their friends. Our sessions are they really create a tight-knit community of learners. It makes my teacher heart the happiest. Okay, my favorite, successes and highlights. We are always really excited to dive into the data at the end of the school year and see how much our scholars have grown. Overall, we found that the scholars who were identified as needing tiered intervention and those who attended our support sessions showed more growth than those who did not. I really want to highlight the scholars who did participate asynchronously. So this option was introduced, I think, about 3 years ago, and it was more utilized last year. It's a great way for scholars with those packed schedules or scheduling conflicts or who miss a week here or there. Scholars, they don't need to miss out on the learning. So as mentioned, we send that Nearpod lesson, we send that recording, and our asynchronous scholars, they watch the recording and they complete that Nearpod lesson and do that extra practice in IXL or LaLilo. So those scholars who really take advantage of that and maybe come to office hours or sign up for some extra time, we're really showing significant growth as well. So we survey our families at the end of every year, and we ask why they make tutoring a priority. The learning coaches and scholars highlighted many positive attributes to our sessions. The tutors and intervention specialists were praised as being helpful, encouraging, easy to understand, fun, and engaging. My favorite is that they report greater confidence, increased enthusiasm, and willingness to learn. Overall, our scholars really looked forward to attending sessions each week. Okay, I'm not going to be able to read all these to you, but these are quotes, some from previous years, some from last year, and I've got to say the sentiment is always the same. And I'm not going to lie, I always get very choked up as I read about the impact that our team has had on Compass Scholars. And my all-time favorite is when a scholar said, "It helped me realize I could do things I've never done before." We are doing our job when scholars realize how smart they are. So I'm now going to pass it over to my wildly talented colleague, Dawn Reinders, to tell you about some additional ways we support our Compass Scholars.
Hi everyone, my name is Dawn Reinders and I serve as the Scholar Support Coordinator here at Compass. In my role, I coordinate our Section 504 plans and I oversee our Student Study Team or SST process. I would also like to introduce our new SST specialist, Hillary Guy. Hillary will be working alongside our teachers and learning coaches to develop and implement strategic action plans for scholars requiring additional academic or behavioral support. So, the SST process. The SST program brings together a team to create an action plan tailored to each scholar's specific needs. We work to support them in their academic journey, ensuring that they have the resources they need to succeed. For our Section 504 plans, I also work with our scholars who have disabilities and are in our general education program. These scholars who need accommodations to access their curriculum and activities successfully, activities successfully, but do not require special education services. Whether a disability is physical or mental, if it's affecting a scholar's ability to learn alongside their peers, a Section 504 plan can help. My goal is to ensure that these barriers are addressed and that a plan is in place to support them. I'm here to help and I look forward to partnering with you if needed to ensure a successful year. Now I will turn this back over to my colleague, Melissa Mayer.
Sorry, and her colleague Melissa Mayer minimized her Zoom screen. Okay, so we are thrilled to share a fantastic resource available again for our middle school and high school scholars. Upchieve is a completely free online tutoring platform. One of the biggest advantages of Upchieve is that it has an on-demand availability. So this means scholars can access tutoring 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, whenever they need help, not just during school hours. It's incredibly accessible. Scholars can connect with Upchieve tutors from any device, whether a computer, tablet, or their smartphone. And for even easier access, they can log in directly through Clever. So Upchieve covers a wide range of key subjects that our 6th through 12th graders scholars might need support with. It includes core subjects like math, science, English, and social studies. They also offer crucial support for SAT and ACT test prep and comprehensive college counseling. I love that this is that homework tutoring that many of our scholars are looking for. And something else that they do is essay help, which I think is really helpful for our scholars. So scholars will be able to add the Upchieve application as a favorite resource in Clever. And as we wrap up today, we would love to encourage you to continue joining us in our Weeks of Welcome offerings. If you're unable to attend a session live, don't you worry. Recordings and presentation slides are regularly added to our WOW library, and that's linked in the chat, and I believe on Parent Square in the MMU. So thank you so much for coming today. Dawn and I are very happy to support you and your scholars this year. Please feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions at any time. Here's our contact information.